Morning. Thank you for joining us in this lecture. Today is going to be, this is actually our first lecture in this psychometrics. And so we are going to do some form of introductions. My name is Jacob Igo. I am the lecturer in psychometrics, the one in charge of academics. Um, I want to sincerely thank you for joining us in this class. This is psychometric studies, and we are going to divide the studies into modules. Remember that psychometric studies has two courses. It has Introduction to Psychometrics 1, tagged as GNS 106, and then Introduction to Psychometrics 2, tagged as GNS 206. Then there is also Introduction Advanced Psychometrics tagged as GNS 306. So as time goes on, we'll be putting us through in that regard. So for today, we are going to take GNS 106, and it is mandatory for all students, all category of students, depending on where you are or where you are coming in from. If you have done GNS 106 before, then this class is not for you, but you can still watch it to get your knowledge or advance your knowledge. But if you have not done GNS 106 before, then this class is for you. If it is coming to your school for the first time, it is mandatory for all of you. So today we are going to look at um, the introductory aspect of this course, and we will take a few things before we start the class. First of all, I want to give you a few instructions. You need to kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscription is absolutely free of charge. As you know, subscription is free of charge. And so I advise that you subscribe and then you click the notification button and put it on so that once we have new video, you will be notified. Once we have new class, you will be notified, and then you will join accordingly. Please click the thumbs up button to like the video so that we can have wider viewership, and share it among students. It is unfortunate that some students may not be able to reach out to this, and so when you share it to them, they can also attend the lecture wherever they are. So thank you and God bless you. So for today, we are going to look in this introductory part, we are going to first of all start looking at the course outline. In this GNS 106, we are going to look at 7 basic topics, which I have already displayed on the screen in GNS 106. So the first one is going to be conceptualization of psychometrics. We will look at basic concepts in psychometrics. We'll look at historical background of psychometrics. We will look at theories of psychometrics. We will look at types of psychometric tests. We'll look at characteristics of a good psychometric test, and then we'll look at uses of psychometric tests. Okay, so let's go. The first is that the conceptualization, which is the first topic on our list. And so, in the conceptualization of psychometrics, we are expected to, at the end of this class, define psychometrics according to different perspectives. So, get ready. At the end of the class, you should be able to define psychometrics from the scientific perspective, from the psychological perspective, from the sociological perspective, and then from educational, occupational, and so on and so forth, as the case may be. So, we have a pretest, and the pretest is asking us what do we understand by psychometrics, and then how can psychometrics be defined from educational and psychological perspectives. So I advise we follow together so that we will have a smooth ride. Now, what is psychometrics? What do we understand by the word psychometrics? Psychometrics is like more of a compound word that emerged from two different words. It emerges from psycho and metrics. Psychometrics, psycho and metrics. Psycho is from the word psychology, while metrics is from the word measurement. So when what we're looking at actually is going to be psychology of measurement or psychological measurement, if we go by that definition. But if you want to go scientific, you may go beyond that. But looking at the two words that I just mentioned, psycho and metrics, like I said, psycho is from the word psychology, metrics is from the word measurement. So you can simply define psychometrics as what? Psychology of measurement or measurement in psychology, or psychological measurement or measurement in psychology. And so it depends on how you want to define the course. Now, what is psychology? Because, like I told you, psychometrics emerges from the word psychology and measurement, psychometrics. Now, what is psychology? Psychology, as a subfield, as a field of study, is defined as scientific study of human behavior and mental processes. Scientific study of what? Human behavior and mental processes. Now, what is behavior? Of course, you know what behavior is. If we have everybody behaves. In fact, by the time you stop, when you stop behaving, is when you are no longer breathing. As long as you continue to breathe, you are behaving. And behaviors appear in two different forms. They appear as the ones we can see, called overt behaviors, behaviors that we can see as they are exhibiting. For instance, you can see me scratching my head, you can see me moving my hands, you see me shaking my head. All these things are behaviors that we can see, and they are called overt behaviors. Now, there are some of these behaviors that you cannot see. They occur within an individual. They are like internal processes that emanate to behaviors that now comes out. So those internal processes are called covert behaviors. And so those ones we cannot see them. The reason is because they are not actually manifesting the way we expect them to manifest. So psychologically, two categories of behaviors occur in an individual: internal behaviors and outward behaviors. So the outward ones, we call them overt behaviors, while the ones that occur within us, we call them covert behaviors. Now, don't forget, I told you that psychometrics comes from two words: psychometrics. Psycho from psychology, metrics from what? Measurement. And I'm trying to explain what psychology is. Now, psychologically, generally, there are four basic ways that psychologists study human behavior. There are so basic ways that psychologists study human behavior, or we can call that goals of psychology. And they are, first of all, they observe behavior. Secondly, they explain behavior. Thirdly, they they predict behavior. And then fourthly, they control behavior. So you observe, you explain, you predict, and then you control. Now, let me give you a typical example. We were in a hall somewhere in the north doing an orientation, particularly at Itsa Mustafa Polytechnic in Lafia. And we noticed that at some time, maybe, somehow or for some reason, there was no electricity at that point in time. So the hall, because so many people were there, the ventilation was not enough because the fans were not working and the windows were not enough to be able to ventilate the place very well. And so students were not comfortable. Some of them were fanning themselves. Some of them were moving from one place to another. That is a behavior, all right? Now, we observe that behavior. We observe the way it was happening and how was it happening. Some people were fanning themselves. Some people were doing moving from one place to another. Some people were doing all sorts of things just because they were not comfortable with the situation at hand. And so it was difficult to stay. That's observation of behavior. Do you understand? Now, When we now say we explain behavior, we look at the why of that behavior. We look at why is that behavior taking place. And the why of the behavior has to do with what is making that behavior to occur. Now, what made that situation to occur was because the place was hot as a result of no electricity to be able to power the fans, and then there was the ventilation system was not enough, and there were so many people in the hall. That is the explanation of that behavior. Now, how can we predict that behavior again? Now, in predicting behavior, we can simply say that whenever there are so many people in a hall that is not well ventilated, such behaviors are going to occur. People are going to behave like that. People are going to do this. People are going to do that. That is prediction of behavior. Now, how do we control? We can control that kind of behavior by either increasing the level of the number of fans in the place, ensuring that there is light always, especially whenever people are gathered in that hall, and we try to create more windows that can bring in ventilation. You see how simple it is. So the four goals have already been explained. Observe the behavior, you explain the behavior, you predict the behavior, and then you control behavior. This is actually applicable to almost everything that we do, especially when it relates to individual behaviors, or when it relates to how we behave from one place and another. And so these are the four goals of behavior. Remember, don't forget, we are still defining psychometrics. And I told you that psychometrics come from what? Two words, psycho and what? Metrics. Psycho from the word psychology, metrics from the word measurement. And then I've explained what psychology is by telling you that psychology is a field of study that studies human behavior and mental processes, both human and animal behavior anyway, and then mental processes. And so we are looking at measurement now. Now, measurement suggests quantification of behavior. Measurement suggests quantification of behavior. Quantification of behavior can be done in so many ways. It can be done in terms of measurement of behavior can be done. Quantification actually can be done in terms of changing behaviors into numbers and then trying to study that behavior as it is occurring. Changing behavior into numbers and then trying to study that behavior as it occurs. I remember that some of you will also know that there are certain times when researchers will come to us with questionnaires. They will give us those questionnaires, we will answer them, and then they will take it and then try to change those questionnaires into numbers or into responses that can be used for their research. So that is what we are talking about, quantification of behavior. Quantification of behavior has to do with changing behavior into figures or numbers or assigning values to observations such that those observations can be measured. That is what quantification entails. So psychometrics is therefore the use of all the quantitative methods or techniques in the measurement of behavior. In the measurement of behavior. Now, scientifically, remember all these ones I'm discussing is more of the peripheral aspect of it, where we are looking at the direct translation of the psycho and metrics. Now, scientifically, psychometrics is defined as a subfield of psychology that utilizes psychological principles, theories, and techniques in the development and validation of psychological tests. Psychometrics is a subfield of psychology that utilizes psychological principles, techniques, and theories in the development and validation of psychological tests. And these psychological tests are used for various means. They are used in diverse areas. They are used in schools, they are used in hospitals, they are used in recreational centers, they are used in developmental centers, and so on and so forth. And so the basic job of psychometrics is to use psychological principles in the development and validation of these tests. And then at the same time, use these tests in the measurement of human behavior. Now, there is a definition you are seeing on the screen right now, which says that psychometrics is concerned with the objective measurement of behavior. That's how me I want to put it. It's an objective measurement of behavior, concerned with objective measurement of behavior. Don't forget I told you earlier that they utilize psychological principles, theories, and techniques in the development and validation of these tests. And these tests are used for measuring diverse behaviors, which is what you're seeing on the screen. So psychometrics is concerned with the objective measurement of intelligence. These are behaviors. Intelligence, your skills, your abilities, your aptitude, your attitude, your personality, your interest, your motivation, your educational achievement, and so on and so forth. So remember I told you it is a subfield of psychology. So it's a branch of psychology that is concerned with all these theoretical and techniques that are used in measurement, which will include your knowledge, which will include your ability, which will include your personality, which will include so many um, other things. So that is another definition of psychometrics. Don't forget I told you that just like every other field, psychometrics has different definitions, different meanings, depending on where it is used, depending on where you want to use it at a particular point in time. The fact still remains that everything you are doing revolves around measurement of individual behaviors, quantification of measurement, and so on and so forth. Now, primarily, psychometrics is concerned with the study of individual difference. And what do I mean by individual difference? There are people, you have people all around you, and you notice that none of these people are the same. They are not the same. Forensic observations have proven that if you take thumbprints of 1 million people, you will never see one that will be equal or the same with another. And that is how our behaviors are. Our personality differs, our motivation differs, our interest differs, our intelligence differs, and so on and so forth. So, psychometrics primarily is a field that is concerned with the study of individual differences involving the design, analysis, and interpretation of tests that you use in measurement and quantification of psychological values, such as what? Mental attributes, your behaviors, your performance, your attitude, your aptitude, your memory, your happiness, your intelligence, your interest, and so on and so forth. So psychometrics delves into all these arrays of behaviors, trying to identify individual differences that occur in these arrays of behaviors. For example, we talk about personality. If we dig into individual behaviors, you will notice that even identical twins, most times or almost all the times, are not the same. Because if you see them facially, they may look the same, but one may be opposite of another. I have very good friends who are twins, and they if you look at them, they are similar. In fact, the first time I looked at them, I could not identify the difference between the two of them. It took me time after looking at them over and over and over and over again for me to be able to identify that this is the difference between Taiwo and this is the difference between Kende and all of that. But then, if you look at their behaviors, the behaviors mostly is like opposite of each other. They have different personality traits. They have different way of doing things, different way of following up things, and so on and so forth. And so this is how our individual behaviors also is. So differences occur across all individual behaviors. And you know, of course, that as differences occur, both in physical and emotional, that is how we are different in all aspects of life. And so psychometrics is is using these differences to be able to identify who is best in this, who is best in that, and who is best in this. Now, measurement is done to be able to do for you to be able to understand these things and properly channel them towards where they are supposed to be used. So it also delves into improvement of existing tests. Of course, I told you that psychometrics uses psychological principles, theories, and techniques to be able to develop and validate tests. So some of them are developed, some of them are using the ones that are existing, such as questionnaires and instruments, so that you can use to measure individual behaviors. And these behaviors or these tests can be used in mental health facilities, in education, in employment, in organizational settings, and all of that. So this where we can find different levels of usage of psychometrics. Now, the United Nations, the US National Council on Measurement and in Education, that is NCME, defines psychometrics as well psychological measurement. Don't take this for granted. It's very, very important because it is one of the refined definition of psychometrics that we have had over time. And so, like I told you this before, I told you that psychology of measurement, or measurement in psychology. So this was in 2017. They defined it as a field in psychology and education that is dedicated in testing, measurement, assessment, and other related activities. And it says that the field covers the theory and techniques of psychological measurement. I've already explained what measurement is. We measure almost everything that we do. We measure everything that we do. In fact, in life, generally, you measure everything, isn't it? So for tailors, if we go to them, I have a friend that is a tailor, a very good one at that. She is very good in what she does. And so whenever you come, what she will do is pick her tape and measure you and make sure that she gets your right measurement to be able to give you that fitting clothes that you want. So all these things you measure. The same thing is applicable to psychometrics. You need to measure everything because for you to take an informed decision, you should be able to measure and say that from here to this place, this is what it is. From here to this place, this is what it is. And in psychometrics, after measuring, you quantify that. And then after the quantification, we now bring in analysis. You analyze your data, and then you interpret it. And you say that because this is how it's going. This is how psychometrics is now used in various fields of study, in in opportunities, in industries, in vocational centers, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So we are looking at those ones we have defined are from different perspectives. Like I told you, we started with psychological measurement and we made mention of a few things. We talked about US National Council of Measurement in Education, how they define psychometrics, and now we are looking at other perspectives. So let's look at psychological perspective. From the psychological perspective, psychometrics is defined as how to measure human behavior through the use of instruments, assign numbers to observations in way that best allow easy understanding and interpret the scores obtained to explain behavior. Did you hear that? Okay, I said it is a measure of behavior that assign using instruments that assign numbers to observations and then interpret those observations, interpret the scores that you have through those observations, and be able to make meaning out of that scores to explain behavior. For instance, I come to you now and I want to see, I want to know the number of persons that that watch billboard whenever they are passing, where there's a very big billboard. And then I sit down somewhere, I structure my questions. I say that, okay, I give gender. Gender, of course, I will know whether it's a man or a woman. And then I want to know between men and women, who are the people that look at billboard more. You get, it's a very simple research. So I can simply say, okay, I'll just go close to a billboard and stand there, and then I'll be looking at people, I'll be observing people. So whenever I see a man look at the billboard, I record one there. Whenever I see a woman look at the billboard, I record two. It's a simple example. It might be difficult anyway because I cannot imagine you just go stand on the street and be watching people looking at billboard. But all the same, I'm just trying to give us an example. So don't be taking away from what we're trying to explain. And so you record that, you record this, you record that, you record this. And at the end of it all, you now go back and sit down and you discover that the number of after your analysis, you will discover that the number of men that look at billboard are less than the number of women that look at billboard. So you can from there draw some conclusions and see what you can work with. So it is measuring behavior, human behavior through instruments. Then you now assign numbers to the observations. You remember I told you I will be looking and then I will be assigning numbers. These men, these women, this. And then those numbers will help me to understand easily what I'm trying to do so that I will interpret those scores. And from the interpretation of those scores, I can explain that behavior. And I will simply say that men look at billboard more than women, or women look at billboard more than men. Do you understand? So that's from the psychological perspective. Now, there's another perspective too, which is from the sociological perspective. From the sociological perspective, psychometry refers to measurement of social behavior in a social environment. I met a friend when I was coming down from the northern part of Nigeria to the west. I met a friend in a vehicle, and all along our travel, she was on her earpiece and on her phone. Her earpiece was in her ears and she was on her phone, not talking to anybody, not doing anything outside her phone and her earpiece. It took me time for me to be able to convince and then be able to interact with her. Unfortunately for me, I was sitting in front, she was sitting behind me. So, but with time, I was able to convince her and then we were able to start talking. But what am I trying to say in essence? Behaviors in social environment, social behaviors in social environment differs in different perspective. There are some people that in that same vehicle, they were just talking and making all sort of noise. There were people in that same vehicle, all they were concerned was to buy whatever they see on the road. There are some people in that vehicle, all they were concerned was to interact in every discussion that was raised in that vehicle. There are some people that were just sitting aloof, not discussing, not doing anything. These are different kinds of social behaviors that you may see when you are in a social environment. And so, psychometrics also help you to be able to understand human behaviors, human social behaviors, or major social behaviors of human beings in a social environment. This social environment could be places like the park, which I talked about, in the car, in schools, in clubs, social interactions, and so on and so forth. So psychometrics helps you to do that. Now, remember that I said in different fields, psychometrics is defined according to what that field is using it for. But remember what I said earlier, and I'm repeating it, that psychometrics exists everywhere. Psychometrics exists everywhere. Everywhere you go, psychometrics is there. Have seen situations where students will come up and say that why are we in mechanical engineering and we're doing psychometrics? What am I doing in I was in one school and somebody was saying that you don't need psychometrics in mass communication and all of that and all of that. No, you need psychometrics everywhere because this is it. Everywhere there is behavior exhibited, psychometrics is needed there. Everywhere you exhibit behavior, psychometrics is needed there. The reason is that in exhibiting of these behaviors, individual differences will occur. And when these individual differences occurs, the only and the most scientific approved way for you to be able to understand these individual differences that occur in every human behavior is with the use of psychometric tools. Why do you think people use psychometric tools when you go for employment and people are giving you questions? Those are psychometric tools. You may not know. But what are they trying to find out? They're trying to find out who you are, what you can do that is beyond that certificate you are presenting to them. What are the traits that you have? Are these traits needed in that organization? And that's the reason why, as a psychometric teacher, I am telling you this time, I am telling you now that before you go for any job interview, first of all, identify what they do. First of all, try to identify what they do. What do they do, and how do they do it? That way, you can align your thinking, you can align your study, you can familiarize yourself with whatever they are doing so that it will be easy for you to fall into what they are doing even when they are asking you questions. It doesn't matter wherever you are coming from. That's the reason why you see currently we have bankers, we have in political scientists working in banks, we have medical doctors into farming. The reason is that they what most of these people, they try to understand the pattern of things that are happening there beyond the certificate that they have. But now you now try to look at what do you have as knowledge base that can be used in driving this organization devoid of what you study. That is what 21st century managers are now looking at. And that's the reason why they are no longer looking at just your certificate. They're not just looking at your first class or your second class or your grade or whatever. No. What are they looking at? Who are you and what can you do? Who are you as a person and what can you do? And that's what brings us to the issue of congruence and incongruence. We have seen so many people that have started one career and they are changing into another career. They started one before they are moving into another. They are not following their congruence. And most of these people, they want to follow their congruence. And that's the reason why they are taking themselves from where they are to where they want to be. Most people are where they are today, not because they want to be there, but probably maybe because the situation of things have made it in such a way that if they don't go to that particular place at that point in time, they will not be able to survive. I have heard of so many people, like a popular Felakuti, who finished his secondary education in Nigeria and went to the United Kingdom to study medicine and became a musician along the line. How does that happen? Because that was not his interest. Probably maybe because the parents wanted him to do it, the parents wanted him to be a medical doctor and this and that. But he now realized as a person that this is not what I'm good at. With the use of psychometric tools, he realized that this is not what I'm good at. So he decided to follow his congruence and go back and retrace his step and move into music. And you see all over the world, we were able to hear about him. So this is the reason why psychometrics is needed everywhere. Everywhere you go, you need it in schools, in recreational centers, in vocational centers, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go back to what we were discussing. I was a bit taken aback. I was a bit taken, sorry, I was a bit taken away from what I was discussing. So I was trying to talk about psychometric usage in the social environment. Now, in fact, psychometric research may be regarded as one of the most important aspects of social work. Of course, social works in every social work because given the sort that research activity is concerned with the quality of a given measurement or measurement strategy, it helps in every aspect of social work because the measurement you need to understand, you need to get the kind of people that are supposed to be there, you need to get the kind of a particular trait that is needed at a particular point to time. So it is imperative for social work research to have a solid understanding of psychometrics. That's just now in another perspective, which is in occupational setting, psychometrics is a tool utilized for different purposes. Psychometrics is a tool utilized for different purposes, especially in occupational settings. For instance, it is adopted in the screening of job applicants. I just mentioned that now. If you go there, they will give you psychometric tests to write. All right. They select through psychometric test. They place through psychometric test. Go back to that person that told me that was talking about mass communication not needing psychometrics. For instance, um, you have 3 or 4 people coming to you for recruitment, and then you are able to select. whichever way, two most competent among them. One is very good in technology, computers, and all of that, and one is such an eloquent speaker. He speaks or she speaks fluently. Where will you place them? Using human knowledge, it might be faulty. Psychometric tools or psychometric knowledge will tell you that the person that is fluent in speaking should be able to be working in the newsroom or in the reception so that they can always accept and fluently communicate with people. The person that is so good in computer or tech should be working in newsroom or maybe somewhere at the back end where he will be helping to control things to make sure that everything is moving, mics are on, and all those things. So you see, with the knowledge of psychometrics, it will be easy for you to select people. After selecting people, you place them because it will be erroneous if you select or if you recruit people and you don't place right people on the right job, you will still not achieve what you want to achieve. So psychometrics helps you to get suitability of candidates and then rightfully place them on right positions for you to be able to achieve that which you want to achieve. So finally, I want to do a recap, which is what we just discussed in totality. We first of all started with the introduction of psychometrics, and we said psychometrics is more of a compound word that combines psycho and metrics. That's two words. Psycho from the word psychology, metrics from the word measurement. And we say that psychology is scientific study of human and animal behavior as well as mental processes, including the internal and external behaviors, which is the covert and the overt. And the psychometrics also is defined from different perspectives, from the psychological, from the sociological, from the different aspects of definitions. And then we also talked about psychometrics being defined from the perspective of psychology, sociology, and so on and so forth. And then we talked about areas where psychometrics can be used, and then we have mentioned a few. Now, remember about what I told you guys before. Please read the instructions, watch the video again over and over and over for you to be able to get enough understanding of what we are talking about. And then remember, again, if you look at my screen, you will see that there is a book called Introduction to Psychometrics. It is recommended textbook for this course. Remember, this course is an online course, and so it is imperative for you to get a copy of this book so that you can have in-depth understanding. One good thing about it is that once you get the book once, you are not going to buy it again. You use it for GNS 106, GNS 206, and GNS 306. In all the courses, you use it. And again, it will also give you additional knowledge. Since it's an online course, you need the materials and all of that for you to study and get well with the study. So please do that, and then we are hoping to see you again very soon in the next class. God bless you, and bye-bye.